To say that the search for Me and My Friends has been a normal piece of lost media to find would be an incorrect statement. In fact, it's been quite the opposite. Back in March, the search team and myself released an extensive video that covered around 8 years of the search's history, with the bulk of the new information being from the early 2020s. This was when the majority of the biggest leads, contacts, and finds were happening, and overall, the video discussed where the search has been and where it might be going in the future. However, aside from the information presented in the video, one of the running themes throughout our time searching for Me and My Friends was the fact that it was so difficult trying to make headway with this search. Unlike any other search I had been a part of before, it seemed like the contacts were particularly difficult to talk to, would often be vague or cryptic in their responses, and gave us the feeling that something was being hidden. Not to mention a variety of bizarre occurrences and coincidences that plagued the search. Most notably, the alleged threat incident from 2017, which gave us the feeling that there were outside forces or people throwing a wrench in how this search would have normally been conducted. Of course, one could look in on all this chaos and chalk that up to conspiracy theories or just being a coincidence. After all, that search video did present a lot of conjecture that we really couldn't prove. And I've also read through a lot of the comments that pointed out just because someone worked at Nick and doesn't anymore doesn't mean NDAs aren't still in place, or maybe they simply don't understand the concept of lost media and didn't want to help us with the search. The list of suggestions goes on and on. But then consider that the search team has had 3 years of time to discuss, witness, and debate these anomalies behind the scenes, outside of a 40-minute video. And now, we have found what could possibly be the biggest and most explicit piece of evidence that proves we weren't just a bunch of conspiracy crafting searchers and legitimizes what we believed from nearly the start of the revival. Basically that we were lied to and the search was sabotaged. Not only that, but it backs up some of the other questions and theories we've had about other users, boiling down to one sickening reality. That Me and My Friends was found back in 2016, 8 years ago, before I even made my original video on the topic, but it's been hoarded and protected ever since. Now, before I give you the details of this revelation, I do want to say that this is only an accusation, based upon old screenshots that were found to exist, and circumstantial evidence and behavior that seems to substantiate our claim. However, we have never gotten a direct statement either way in modern times that does confirm or debunk this theory. You may come to your own conclusion about this as I present the information to you. Let's go back to when this all started. In mid-November 2024, when Burr, who is a veteran to the search and was a huge help in getting us as far as we have, posted a screenshot in our private group. This screenshot, in particular, became the smoking gun for this entire deep dive. On July 8th, 2016, one of the admins from the Backyardigans wiki, who I will call M, made a bold statement in the edit history of the Me and My Friends page on the old Lost Media wiki, which is now the Lost Media Archive. It states, "The admins at the Backyardigans wiki all have a copy. Most content on this page is false and is appearing in search results in place of our own work." Not only that, but upon further inspection, this same user left an identical message on the page to the Backyardigans CGI pilot as well, suggesting that as far back as 2016, they had both pilots. Now, at first we all freaked out over this find, but personally I almost didn't believe it was true. My initial reaction is that this was just a troll and was said in passing to annoy the users on the wiki. Alex, who is part of the search as well, even suggested that it was an intentionally false statement made, used to assert authority. Perhaps the original Lost Media wiki page was being written with unverified info, so this admin made a comment to stop the spread of misinformation. But these explanations were quickly silenced after looking back through old interactions and statements made by the admins, as well as other users from the Backyardigans community before this topic ever gained attention. So let's start with the evidence. What makes us believe this statement is true? Well, the first and most easily revisited piece only dates back to the past couple years, and to the time when we were actively talking to the admins. Now, even in my search history video for this topic, I pointed out how our interactions with the admins and the users associated with them were sorta weird, and looking back on those, it now paints a picture that makes a lot of sense. We sorta had an inside joke back then that the admins only talked to us as a facade, and everyone else in the chat was added to spy for them. But based on this new theory, that actually might be true. Firstly, there was one user, who I will define as J, that was the holder of the infamous pink frog image fairly early on in the search, around 2020. Initially, the photo was used as proof that J was a legit searcher, having been seen briefly by SewerReviewer and Mr. Bones, before it was immediately deleted from their DMs. J was constantly asked about being able to reshare the image, which he never did, and always claimed that he needed permission from the person he got it from. But when asked about that source or where they found his contact info, an explanation was never given to that either, only that his email was saved from a now deleted website, which we never found a trace of online, even after getting the name of whose site this allegedly was. But eventually Jay was accepted as being legit, and was added to both the public search server as well as our private group chat, which included Backyardigans wiki admins too. With Jay now fully integrated into the community, another mysterious user appeared in a similar way. Fast forward a year to December 2021, Burr had posted a huge new lead in the public Discord server that named a new crew member we had not contacted before, where it was also pointed out that this person's name was listed incorrectly on the Backyardigans wiki. Specifically, this info was posted on December 9th, and given the sensitivity surrounding this find, it was decided to further conduct our research privately, as to not have the lead ruined by outsiders. We ended up going private with the search immediately following this post, when, only 2 days later, on December 11th, a new user, who I will define as O, added a completely unseen photo to the Me and My Friends article on the Backyardigans wiki. There was no explanation for it, and we were shocked that new content could show up as suddenly as it did. And after believing that this user could have even more leads that would be vital to our efforts, they were then invited to our private group, without any other vetting. At the time, they didn't say much about themselves and only mentioned which crew member they received that photo from, before posting a couple screenshots of their conversation. But little did we know at the time, there was a huge issue with this email address that showed in the photo. It's fake. Burr ended up finding the real email address of this crew member, and it does not match up with the one in the screenshot. Not only that, but I eventually reached out to this crew member during a round of revisiting of old contacts and spoke to the guy directly, and in my conversation with him, he claims to have nothing from the pilot. He even said there was very little to keep and he hardly remembered it. That alone proves that O's email was faked in its entirety. This is a complete hoax. Before we even knew all of that, Burr was openly sharing the emails with our new lead in that private group where O was, eventually leading to the photo of the tape and the possibility of it getting ripped. The contact said he would get back to us, but of course he never did. We always assumed that he just didn't want to tell us the news that he wasn't going to rip it, but I feel like there was something more malicious going on. For all the time O was in this chat, he had no reaction to anything that was happening, even after we pinged him. We had long since suspected that O was a spy account for how rarely and strangely he interacted with us, and has led to a possible connection between himself and Jay. Mr. Bones pointed out that he suspects Jay might have been sent to spy on the public server, whereas O was sent to spy on the private group once we moved out of the public server. This theory is also enhanced by the idea that later on, we figured out Jay fabricated emails as well, having once shown us a cut-off screenshot claiming to be from a former crew member, who we eventually contacted ourselves. And he said he remembers the pilot but never worked on it specifically, completely contradicting what is shown in this screenshot. It's completely fake too. This in itself removes all credibility from J and O, and I still think it's a fair possibility that the wiki admins may have been behind these accounts, purposely to keep an eye on us, because they themselves were never in the public search server or our official private group. They were only ever in a spin-off group DM. Like I said, this allowed them to keep tabs on our progress without actually being there, and we were convinced these users were actually legit by having them flaunt new photos in places we would see them. They gained our trust by doing that. But you might be asking yourself at this point, why would the admins do that? Why would they spy on our private groups and sabotage our progress? Well, that leads to another oddity that I mentioned earlier, as well as having discussed in the search history video. That's the guy with the incorrect name. This name was one that Burr hadn't come across before, that we hadn't come across before, and that no one had come across before, because every credit of this person's name that's connected to the series online has their first name listed incorrectly. It's like crediting him as John when his real name was Bill the whole time. For years on both the Backyardigans wiki and in conversations with the wiki admins, they would always refer to a former crew member by an incorrect name, yet never once figured out they had it wrong. Burr was the first to bring this to our attention, yet somehow, despite having the wrong name, the wiki admins claimed they had contacted him and that he had no content from the pilot. My question has always been, how could the admins have claimed to have spoken to a person who worked on me and my friends that does not exist by that name? Because the thing is, this guy actually did have content from the show. He had the copy of the pilot, the photo we were sent. This is the same guy. So this logic plays into the idea that his name was either intentionally being repressed to throw us off the trail, or that they just didn't trust us enough to inform us of the error. I tend to believe the former, mostly for the fact that they were so protective of their wiki article about me and my friends. It's still locked to this day, and I'm sure they wouldn't have wanted to have false information on it. And no, I don't believe the admins were so misguided that they simply never realized it was wrong. They had extensive knowledge of the pilot before anyone else did, all the way back in 2011 actually. This was 4 years before the 2015 date they originally told me, which was another lie. The date of the article's creation is from as far back as 2011, and information was being gathered in the early 2010s. I also think it's unlikely that they had accidentally contacted anyone by the wrong name, who then replied to them stating they had no content, leading to them telling us that. There should have been context added either from the email reply or just from the admins themselves that pointed out the guy they talked to was the wrong person. But speaking of the article on the Backyardigans wiki itself, that alone raises another point of suspicion based on the context of the smoking gun screenshot. The date on this screenshot is July 8th, 2016, and according to the edit history of the pilot article, this is around the time when it stopped being updated entirely. This suggests that once the admins actually obtained the pilot, there was no need for them to keep updating the article. Again, repressing its content would prevent others from engaging in their discoveries. The mentality of a hoarder or someone that likes to gatekeep information. Normally, I would try to justify these strange decisions, and say maybe it's because they didn't want any unnecessary attention for having such a rare and desired pilot in the first place. But then you have to remember, this was before my original video even came out, before anyone cared about the topic. There would have been no reason to want to hide this from the public, other than just to hoard it. This leads into a larger overarching reason why I truly believe the reason they never posted about it and gave us so much false information has to do with a larger negative sentiment towards the concept of lost media and the lost media community itself, especially in those earlier days. If you go back and analyze this screenshot, it's pretty clear they're protective of their own work. I can totally understand wanting credit for your own work if you spend time researching a topic, but this just seems like a complaint that the wiki's article is encroaching on their territory. It's not specifically about stealing their article or not crediting them, it's just that their article exists at all. And the ironic part in all of this is that I don't think the Me and My Friends article was ever really fleshed out on their own wiki in the first place. To this day, there's still more info on the Lost Media wiki than in their own article. So it's a contradiction to say you have the pilot, but then have almost nothing on your actual wiki article about it. In my opinion, this is just a small taste of the bigger conflict between the two groups, especially when it comes to another user who I will define as K. According to Alex, who has deep knowledge of the Backyardigans community, K was an oracle of sorts for the community, having extensive knowledge about the series, having researched it long before anyone else, and based on these new findings, seems to be the biggest gatekeeper of content. He strongly disliked Lost Media or anyone that tried to undermine his personal efforts. In 2017, which was after my original video had already been taken down, he said,
"You can stop giving credit to the Lost Media Society,"
in the edit history of an article. And there are records of the entire Lost Media Wiki article having been deleted from the old site. Alex informed me that he was always coy when it came to the pilots too, suggesting that he had information about it that the public did not know. In late 2021, one of the last times anyone heard from him before he allegedly left the internet, he said,
"Anything pilot related, I unfortunately cannot answer. Haha."
This happened on more than one occasion. Not only that, but Kay was also known to post unsourced details about the show on Wikipedia, which ended up being deleted for their lack of source. This led to arguments with other editors on the site, and what's more is that Alex claims the details he was posting on Wikipedia were indeed accurate, but they were from private crew members who he couldn't cite as sources in the article. Knowing what we know now, he must have had those connections before anyone else, leading us back to the theory that he too had the pilots long before the search. It only makes sense given his influence. Alex has a pretty extensive knowledge of the Backyardigans wiki too, and the people who ran it, stating that they were all active from around 2011 to 2014, with the last major updates to the site coming in 2021. The 2016 mention of having the pilots would fit right into this time frame, and suggests they might have even been obtained earlier than that. With their article having been made in 2011, that's very likely. What this suggests is that combined, they have been controlling the information and narrative about these pieces of lost media, and circles us back to an even wilder theory about where this whole mess started: the threat. Like I mentioned before, based on our previous research, we believe that the threat was staged in an effort to derail progress. Though originally, this was in the context of a former employee who just didn't want extra attention or emails from the people searching for it. But now, the possibility has been proposed that this incident could have been headed by someone in the Backyardigans community itself, maybe even Kay. In my original video that discussed both pilots, the only clip available of the CGI pilot at the time came from Kay's video, so I gave him credit and showed it on the Vimeo page. But not only did my video get taken down as a result of the incident, but Kay's retrospective did too. If we assume the community gatekeeps or controls information, it's possible mine was taken down to restrict information, and Kay staged his own takedown to sever the connection it now had to lost media. Or maybe just the fact that I, from the lost media community, used it in a video. Keep in mind too, the narrative over the death threat was always about the usage of that CGI pilot clip. It was never about me and my friends specifically. This lineage is further enhanced by a comment in April 2017, again before my video released. It mentions that both articles for the pilots were taken down from the Lost Media Wiki. And look at what they say in the latter part of this comment, referring to the CGI pilot, that most of it has already resurfaced. In 2017, I could barely find anything from this with the exception of that one clip. This alone proves that there was more content being hoarded back then, but I would even go as far to say just spreading around that clip was enough of a reason for them to want to erase it from the internet. And it was because the CGI pilot was still so obscure back then, they could get away with it. That could be a reason why the death threat was always about the CGI pilot and not me and my friends. No one could craft a story about the Nick Studios Florida reel at that point. It had already been online for years and was not connected to an individual person. But using a lesser known clip as leverage couldn't be questioned. Apparently that one clip had come from an obscure reel of an animator which was not widely known about until 2022. So back in 2017, yeah, you could claim anything about it and there was no evidence to prove it was false. But this is just all speculation based on circumstantial evidence. And just to make sure we were thorough with this video, I did of course reach out to the old admins, and Alex reached out to some of the current ones for any comment or explanation on the matter. While I didn't expect to get the pilot from them, nor would I make them give it to us, I just wanted clarification about this screenshot. But unfortunately, we never got any clarity. No one ever responded, and I don't even know for certain who has a copy, beyond looking at a 2016 chart of admins and just assuming. Regardless of what you want to believe, there is no excuse for faking email addresses or claiming contacts have content when they actually don't. So at the very least, J and O were frauds from the beginning and we just never realized it. However, that only goes as far as their intentions with us. Aside from that, for sure the pink frog image that J had and the group photo that was allowed to be added to the wiki from O were both legit. But to this day we still don't know their true origin, and it only points towards the community itself as having hoarded content or being in close cahoots with the admins themselves. The whole situation is too strange to ignore. But I feel like the bigger takeaway from this rabbit hole is that information coming out of the wiki or its admins cannot be taken at face value for accurate research purposes. Though I do think that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. I think these screenshots and the trail they have left behind tell a much different story. Likewise, we have no real idea how far the meddling actually goes. I'm sure there were some details we overlooked and can only gauge the damage based on crew members we directly talked to. I honestly believe O interfered with Burr's exchange when we were talking to the guy with the tape, because the emails were posted openly in the chat and him ghosting us right after he was so helpful just makes no sense. Not only that, but the admins claimed they had previously reached out to the same director Mr. Bones did, and the reason why she suddenly and abruptly ended the conversation with him has always been a mystery to me. Perhaps they had something to do with that. The admins could have burned bridges with anyone they could to lessen the chances of new searchers getting their own copy. For the record, if the Backyardigans wiki admins do actually have the pilots, I'm not angry at them for the fact that they refused to release it or that they've been hoarding it for all these years. I'm more so disappointed that we had to find out about it this way. We've spent years looking for a copy of something they had already obtained, told misleading information, and were possibly even sabotaged when we did our own work. I think the story of me and my friends would have been way different if they had chosen to never interact with us at all, or just simply saying, yeah, we have a copy but we can't release it. Sorry, you'll have to find another. And that would have been okay, but to me, it definitely seems like that is not what they wanted in the first place. They wanted to make things as difficult as possible and lie on purpose, protect their article, and hoard the content that they have because they discovered it and it's their find. And without getting any word from them about this, now that the allegations have been rediscovered, it only enhances this theory. Perhaps their silence says it all. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to check out some of my other lost media videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, Finn.